اشرح صدري بالذكر يا الله يسر.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon everyone. Today I'm going to present to you about cross-cultural understanding. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Nisa Azzahra Miftakhul, student number 1811201008, and I'm a student of Aisyiyah University of Yogyakarta. The purpose of this presentation is to compare between South Korean and Indonesian culture. I'll start with a definition of culture. What is culture? Culture is the characteristic and knowledge of a particular group of people encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and arts. Let me start with some general information on the geography between Indonesian and South Korean. Indonesia has around 17,504 islands, around 6,000 of which are not permanently inhabited, spreading out the equator, providing tropical weather. Indonesia consists of 5 large islands, namely Java, Sumatra, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and Irian Jaya. This series of islands is also referred to as the archipelago or the Indonesian archipelago. While in South Korea has many small islands off the coast of its water, but the biggest island is just Jeju-do, which is located in the southern part of the peninsula. There are many differences between Indonesian and South Korean culture. I'll start with the way they greet. As we know that every country has a different way to greet each other. In Indonesia, they usually greet each other by shaking hands or just waving while saying hello. While in South Korea, they greet each other by bowing or looking down. The way to bow also has its own rules, depending on who we greet. If we greet an older person, then we must bow. But if we greet the same person as us, we only need to bow our heads. Now, I'd like to move on their language. Every country has their own language. In Indonesia is indeed very rich, including its ethnicity and language. Even in each region has their respective regional language that are used to communicate it, but the national language is Indonesian, while in South Korea only has one language. They do not have regional language. South Koreans communicated in the same language, that is Korean or Hangul. Now, I'd like to look at their majority religion. In Indonesia, Islam is the majority religion, which is embraced by around 87% of Indonesia's population, which has made Indonesia the country with the most Muslim population in the world. While in South Korea, most South Koreans choose not to have religion, or we can say that they're atheism. Buddhist or Buddha is the largest religion in South Korea with a population of 10 million. Let's now turn to their traditional clothes. In Indonesia, there are hundreds of types of regional clothes in Indonesia due to diversity in the island nation. Each Indonesian ethnic group has its own traditional dress. While in South Korea only has one type of traditional clothing, namely hanbok, or hanbok currently refers to Joseon dynasty style clothing, which is usually worn formally or semi-formally in traditional festivals. Now, I'd like to move on the next part, where it's about the martial arts. There is a difference in martial arts between their countries. In Indonesia, it has been known as Pencaksilat. Pencaksilat is a traditional martial art originating from Indonesia, widely known in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, the Southern Philippines, and Southern Thailand in accordance with the spirit of various ethnic groups of the archipelago. While in South Korea, it has been known as Taekwondo. Taekwondo is a native sport from Korea that has grown rapidly and has become an official sport at the Olympics since 2000 in Sydney. Besides that, Korea also has a number of other martial arts sports such as Taekwondo, Hapkido, Tangsodo, Won, Kundo, and Suba. Now turning our attention to the education system. In Indonesia, the longest class of student learning is 10 hours. The class time is still fairly outrageous. While students in Korea must study for 16 hours, they attend school from morning to night. South Korea, including one of the ASEAN countries that managed to penetrate the rank 1 country with the best education in the world. However, the education system in Indonesia is mentioned again as less in 40 countries observed by a country education system assessment team. Now, I'd like to look at the public transportation. In Indonesia, the streets in big cities in Indonesia are very congested. Often even traffic jams occur because most road users are motorists and private cars, while in South Korea, many residents more often use public transportation such as subways and walking rather than using private vehicles in particular such as motorbikes for traveling. Let's now turn to the way they eat. The average type of Korean food is soupy. It turns out that in Korea it has become a habit to sip the food sauce directly from the bowl, or even if the food is served directly in the pan, the sauce will be slurped directly from the pan as well. Very different of course in Indonesia. It is considered inappropriate for Indonesian because sipping food sauce directly from the bowl in Indonesia is considered impolite. And that brings us to the end. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.